Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is going to be my neutral palette ranking. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today I'm going to be ranking all of the neutral eyeshadow palettes in my makeup collection. There's 38 of them, and this is going to be the final ranking of 2025. I did a ranking by color story once a month in the past year, and I really enjoyed doing it that way because I do, of course, have different things coming in all the time, but I do feel that way. Like very often I would like do all of my rankings in like August for eyeshadow palette month, but spreading them out throughout the year just made a little bit more sense to me. I have 38 of them, so that's quite a lot, and I did include a couple, whereas like, I'm not sure whether I featured in any, like whether I featured these in any other sort of these eyeshadow palette rankings. Of course, I will be ranking all of the eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2025 as well. I think that can actually be my first video that goes live in 2026. I'm still currently working a little bit on reviewing one more palette before I can film my final review of 2025. That should be up this weekend because I'm testing that palette out as we speak. And then do my palette ranking for the year at the start of the new year. That's sort of the plan. So plenty more rankings to come because I really love doing them. And of course I have a completely mixed bag here of more drugstore things, more high-end things, things that are discontinued, things you can still get, things by indie brands, things by luxury brands, because I love a neutral palette, so there is a lot in this category, I do have to say. But yeah, let me talk to you about these neutral eyeshadow palettes. So we're gonna start with numbers 38 to like 30-ish, and in this little stack I have some things that are discontinued, things that I thought I was forgetting to put in any of the other rankings, but the color story may not be perfect for just plain neutrals. They could be too warm toned or they could be cool toned as well. So that's why I'm like, what do I do with it? And I have one thing in here that I'm still sort of like making my mind up about because it is a newer palette to me and I'm still sort of playing with it. But the two things in here that I discontinued are these two Zoeva palettes. It's the Blanc Fusion and the Melody palette. These are long sans discontinued. I do not recommend you picking these up because they are old. So if you can still find them, they're probably not going to be unused. These palettes haven't been around for like 8 years or so. So don't buy them secondhand, please don't. Blanc Fusion for a very long time has been a really beautiful, more neutral leaning, like, but with warm tones in, which is why it's gonna go into this video. I could have put it in the warm toned video as well. Might have done that. I'm not entirely sure anymore because I did warm tones over like the spring season. So I haven't done that for a hot minute, but it does have 5 like cooler neutral tones in the bottom row for the mattes. It's the shimmers, especially these two, where it gets some warmth, but they are like yellow, and I always compare this to the Naked Honey, which I did like. I like that yellowy bronze that the Naked Honey had, but this has always worked better for me because it looks more neutral on my skin tone. So that's why I thought it would be perfect for this video, but like I said, it's very long since gone, and this didn't get a lot of rave reviews at the time because these tones weren't trending. This came out when everything was orange, and Zoeva was very much ahead of its time. By the way, if you're looking for reviews on any of these, I'll link you to my eyeshadow palette review tab on my blog because that's where you can find most of these. Some of these are so old that they predate me doing videos with them. Just so you know, so even if I could show you swatches, I don't have them. Zoeva, the Melody, this is one of the best ever palettes for fair skin. So if you missed out on this one, I do apologize, but this one is just absolutely stunning. It's super great for fair skinned people. It has 2 really beautiful duochromes in the middle here, and then this is super special as well. And then you just have these really beautiful sort of like neutrally peachy shades. It's not overly warm, it's not overly cool, it's very much smack in the middle, and it's very sort of whimsical and ethereal looking, especially if you have fair skin. So if you still have that one in your collection, maybe pull it out. And then also in the bottom of this ranking, just because I haven't tried it enough, is the Cosmic Beauty Muse palette. I'm still in the midst of testing this out a bit more. So far, I've only done one look with this, and you might be wondering, Micah, why is such a colorful palette in this neutral palette ranking? Because at the end of the day, when you start mixing and matching these, your looks are going to sort of like look like a neutral with a pop of color. That's really what this is giving me, and it is a beautiful palette, but it's definitely the older Cosmic Beauty formula from what I've tried. I tried this when I did test it out. I tried it together with the Smolder, which is one of their newer releases that they did let this year, and I can definitely tell that Cosmic Beauty is one of those brands that has upgraded their formula over time. This still feels good, and especially if you have a deep skin tone, this is going to look like a neutral on you. On me, it may be a bit more colorful because I'm so fair-skinned, but this palette is, I think, very versatile, and it can definitely give that sort of neutral with a pop of color look. And you'll find that I do have a couple of those palettes in this ranking here today, where there is definitely a little bit of color there, because neutrals don't have to just be browns. I feel those are going to be more so in the top 10, I do have to say. Then this is a palette where I'm like, did I put this in my warm tone video? I hope I didn't forget it. So in case I did forget it, the Catrice Falling Colors. Who remembers me raving about this? This was limited edition. It's long since discontinued, and it was like Huda Beauty 18 pan quality, but at a drugstore price point when this came out. This was only 15 euros. I mean, I like this so much that when I found it again on Amazon, I bought 2 of them and put it in a giveaway because I was like, more people need to have this in their lives. It has some rosy tones. It does have warmth, but overall it's sort of like rosy neutrals, I would say. So I could have put this in my rosy ranking. I could have put it in my warm tone ranking. I really don't know. In case I didn't, it's here. And because it's discontinued, it's this low. Another palette that is this far down is again because I'm like, where should I categorize this? It's not exactly a neutral palette, it's not exactly cool toned, it's not exactly warm toned, but it's a little bit of everything. And it's the Sigma Cool Neutrals. I could have put this in my cool tone ranking as well. Again, brain fart here. I've been having the worst week ever, so I do apologize. It's in the video that went up on Joocyee, if you want to know. I filmed this look for you guys. I was testing out my office Christmas party look, and I'm really digging it. So if you want to see how I created the look, then you can go over to the video I did on Joocyee, and there I tell you a little bit more about, like, life. Just, it's been crazy. So I do apologize if I did already show you this in my cool tone ranking, but you can see this isn't cool toned. And in my brain, it therefore fits in the neutral category because it has warmth, it has cool tones, it has rosy tones, and it has neutrals. So it can do anything. And so it's a neutral palette. If I don't really know whether something's like super warm or super cool toned, I tend to put it with my neutral ranking. So that's why this one goes here, even though it says cool neutrals. Don't be fooled by the name. You get a little bit of everything in here. And what I appreciate about Sigma is that they give you a matte and a shimmer for every single column. So you can use this as duos, you can use it as quads, everything plays together so nicely. And this is really nicely done. If you were to just go by the name, I recommend you never do that. You actually look at the color story and you look up swatches before buying something. But I do know there were a lot of people who were like very hyped up when they saw that this was going to be called Cool Neutrals before we ever got to see the color story. And then they were disappointed that it wasn't cool toned. I get it, but it is a beautiful palette in its own right. But that's why it's down here, because it also confuses me. And now we do get to like neutral palettes, but these are just not things I reach for a lot, which is why they're down here. The Deja Brew from Colourpop, I spotted this again in my collection the other day. I'm like, yup, when I declutter my makeup collection in 2026, this is on the chopping block. I don't think about it. If I think of a neutrally leaning palette from Colourpop that I have that I want to use all the time, it's the That's Taupe. This is too similar. It's just a little bit more neutral rather than cool tone leaning, and I would go for the That's Taupe over this all the time. And I feel like even like some of these shimmers, like I use the That's Taupe is on my face today, so I use it today. And I look at this and I'm like, yeah, it's essentially a slightly more matte version of the That's Taupe. Did I need this in my life? Possibly not. So, and the That's Taupe, we all know, is up there for me. It's one of my favorite cool tone palettes of all time. So, still love that to pieces. And then this one, the Pretty Grunge by Huda Beauty. I like when I do these videos, I just go through my collection palette by palette and go like, could that go into the video? Could that go into the video? And I was like, oh yeah, I got this at some point. It's beautiful, but it's a little bit deep for me. And there's really like only a handful of shades that I truly want to reach for when I use this. Again, Huda Beauty 18 pan palettes were some of my favorites back when she still did them. There's a bit of warmth, there's a bit of like rosy purpliness in here. It does have some cool tones in as well. But I never really loved these like cream shadows we got in there. Those I always ignored. This is okay as like an eyeliner, but it's too creamy and it doesn't really set. So on my hooded eyes, it kind of like transferred to my top lid but when I tried it. So I never really got to try the black again. That's in the corner there. It just has some beautiful shades in. I'm gonna have to reach for this again at some point because I know this is good quality. It's just not top of mind because I have other things that can do this for me, I think. So again, this may have to be on the chopping block come decluttering time. Not entirely sure yet whether I can do it because Huda Beauty doesn't make these larger palettes anymore, and I'm not someone who wants to declutter just to have fewer things. If it still sort of like works in my brain and I can still film content with it, it has merit in my collection. So I do sometimes keep things because of this whole thing that I do, not because I actually see myself using it a lot. Natasha Denona Glam palette is in here. Again, very low down, but I forgot, and I own this. But that's because Natasha Denona has just come out with something that I like better than this for a neutral palette. Who knew? And this was very much a cool tone palette at the time, but it's also not that cool tone because pretty much this entire section here is like warmer things. We have a gold in here. Nice gold. I like the rose gold that it has. It's got some taupey shimmers in here too. That when I tried to put these, because I did reorganize all of my Natasha Denona palettes back the way they came as much as I could, based off like pictures I could find online and on my blog. Not sure I did a good job putting it back together, but yeah. There are some beautiful things in here, but there is like, especially this, like it doesn't look that warm toned in the pan, but on my lids it pulls very gold. So this is like a 50-50 palette for me. It's like half cool toned, half neutrals, like warmer tone things. So again, that's why it goes here. But as you'll see from the top 10, and if you've seen any of my eyeshadow palette content that I've done in the past year, they do something that I like a lot better. So that was 38 to 30. We're now going from 30 to 20. So that's the next section. And in this section, again, I have some more things that are like colorful, neutral things, I would call them, but also some things that are like, these are more current, but they didn't really give me what I wanted, even though I was very hyped up for some of these. But let's start with just some older things, and where I'm like, yeah, I like these, but they're not like my super duper favorite. So again, should I just declutter these at some point? Because I haven't reached for these in a while. First things first, number 30 then, we're getting to that, is the Pat McGrath's Ritualistic Rose. Again, maybe I put this in my rosy toned ranking, I don't know. Or maybe this was in my warm toned ranking, I don't know. But you can see there's like 2 warm tones and 2 rosy tones. So that's why my brain is like, did I mention this anywhere? I don't know. And this is another one of those palettes where I'm like, she's pretty. I really like this. Do I realistically reach for this a lot? I do not. But it is a very beautiful thing. These are 4 of the Astral shades. So these are the special Pat McGrath shade that everybody was... When these came out, everybody was going crazy for them. And I had a couple of these quads, and this is the one that I kept because I do really like these tones. But then Pat McGrath started doing rosy tones in every single palette she does. So I felt that this also became superfluous in my own collection for that reason, and that's why I don't think about it. Even though these shadows are beautiful and I really love them. So, yeah. I need to go through some of my rankings that I did this year in my Christmas break and like have a look and sort of make a list of like palettes I need to prioritize in 2026 and that I need to rotate through and get to again, because that's definitely a contender, because that was an expensive palette, let me tell you. We have some Kaleidos in here as well. I love my Futurism palettes, but I ended up decluttering most of them because a lot of them became superfluous. But something makes me hang on to the Sashimi City. This is number 7. This was the last one they did in this range. And it's just such a wonderful color story. It's got some like yellowy peachy tones in there, but especially like some of these shimmers are amazing. They are a little bit more of a duochrome, and then the neutrals with the mattes just play off of them really, really well. It's just really beautiful makeup, but I also know that these are magnetic. So I could also just put this, like the couple of shades that I like from this in my singles collection, which is why I don't think about this, but this is really beautiful. It's very similar to a quad I used to own from Colourpop. There was like another like cream soda, I think it was called, back when Colourpop did those little quads. This was too similar to it, so I decluttered the Colourpop, kept this one. But again, as you'll see, I have so many other neutral palettes now, and some of those I just like so much that if I think, ooh, I want to wear a neutral, I always opt for those that are in my top 10, which is why these things that I'm ranking more lower down, it's again, it's not because I don't like them. It's because I don't think about them, which is different. I have too much stuff. We all know that. Another palette that is here because I've sort of forgotten about it. And this is one where I'm like, ABH, you were a great brand. Do I still need these things in my life? Maybe not. This is the Nouveau palette that ABH did. And this was, everybody was going gaga for this because it was their comeback. Everybody's like, oh, they're doing something really fun and unique again. And this is what I mean, again, with like a more neutral color story, but that does have obvious color. Not just because it has the purple in, but it's actually pretty green leaning. And then with some peachy tones in here. Mine did fall at some point, and some of my favorite shades in this palette like shattered. And that makes me a little bit nervous using this because I'm afraid that if I stick a brush in, it disintegrates again. It's a whole thing. It does have beautiful shades in. So now that I look at it again, I'm like, I could never let go of this because I do really like this color story. But I also haven't reached for it in like 2 years. Also because it broke. When things break on me, like this is the thing, like with makeup, I'm so careful with my makeup to not drop it. I select certain things to take with me traveling so that my beautiful palettes don't like break on a trip. Like, to me, these are really precious things, and when they do break, well, for whatever reason, I always feel less inclined to use them, not because I don't like the product, but because I'm afraid to break it again. It's a whole thing in my brain. Help me, someone, please. Because how long have I been doing this? I have plenty of eyeshadow, but still, there's just, like, I still have this sort of, like, scarcity mindset with it. I don't know why. Kaleidos, again, this is a cold brew. This is one of the first quads they ever did. And I like this better than I do the Sashimi City. But as you will see with the rest of this like neutral palette ranking, I have a million things like this. Do I need to keep it? Is it a fun quad? Yes. Do I love that taupey brown leaning shimmer in here? Also, yes. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So that's why I sort of want to keep this around. And I have all 6 of these little Kaleidos quads, so they sit really nicely within my makeup collection. I currently have plenty of space for all of my palettes in my makeup collection as well. My drawers aren't overflowing or anything like it. So that also makes me feel like, oh, I don't necessarily need to get rid of things, you know? And then I end up keeping things like this. But do I use it? No. Do I want to use it? Not sure yet. I'm not sure if that would make the list of things I need to use in 2026, like the Pretty Grunge would. And the Sashimi City as well. So, not entirely sure yet. I'm just going to rope these in together because they kind of fit into the same realm in my brain. And it's these like little 6 pans by M Cosmetics. These are the Divine Skies eyeshadow palettes. This one is in Rhoda, and this is in Saturn's Return. Both of these fit into my brain as neutral palettes. This one is a little bit more warm toned. This has some cool tones in, but neither of them is truly committing, I feel. Because here you can see it's a little bit like peachy brown, but the browns are very neutral. So that's why, like, you could go very warm toned with this, but you don't have to. This was the first one I tried, and I do really like the quality. Like, this could be perfect as a little palette for travel. Why don't I do it? I don't know. And then Saturn's Return was promoted as a cool tone palette, and then I got it in, and I was like, but that's not cool tone. It has cool tones, for sure, but there's at least two here that are, well, more of a neutral, really. So that's why in my brain, this works as a neutral palette. I'm not sure whether I'm the only one. Again, beautiful quality. Do I think about these in my makeup collection, though? Not really. But these are beautiful. They are really, really beautiful. Next up is another sort of like colorful take on a neutral palette. Sydney Grace. They make some of my favorite neutrals, though. Like, they do some really good neutral things. But Heaven on Earth has some blues in, so it's not that neutral, perhaps. And the neutrals we do get in here are quite warm leaning, and then of course you get the greens. But if I use these greens on my lids, to me, in my brain, it works like a neutral. Like these cocky olivey shades, I feel count towards neutrals. They aren't necessarily, like, they're not green enough to be a green, and they're not warm toned enough for me to be like a true warm tone. That's why it's in here, but that's why it's in the bottom half of the ranking. Because this is, like, you do have to commit with this. And I do feel with this one, where some of the other palettes I still need to show you by this brand, like, you do get the rows, but I do feel this one only works within the row you're selecting. So you either have a blue look, a green look, or a neutrally warm look, but there's, like, no in-between with this, which, really beautiful quality, which is why it's up a little higher than the rest, but not necessarily that cool tone or neutral toned. Still a really wonderful formula, though, so that's why I'm ranking it a little bit higher than some of the other things. But here again, I feel like you really do need to make your choices to get a neutral look out of that one. Similarly here, it's also like a neutral palette with some colors in. It's the Jewels and Gems by Odin's Eye. And this is beautiful. This is, I think, one of the last Odin's Eye palettes I tried. I found out that Odin's Eye just has batch issues, so they do really beautiful things, but you need to get the right batch in order to get the good quality, which it just feels like a bit of a lottery. I am currently in my Shop My Stash trying out the Spring Dragon palette that Esther very kindly gifted me, and I like that quality a lot better than from, like, some of these other Odin's Eye palettes that I've tried, but this color story has my heart. Like, you do get color in here, but overall it's quite like dusty neutrals. It's like grungy, neutral, colorful at the same time. So Odin's Eye always gets me with their color stories, but because I can't rely on their quality being good, they kind of don't work in my brain as being like a great brand that I want to try everything by. So that's why I haven't tried them for a while. And then we have two Bella Beauté Bar palettes that I tried this year that weren't my favorite, both for different reasons. The Smoky Glam, they re-released this year, and I have the original Smoky Glam, which I tried in the past. I almost decluttered it, but then as I was, like, trying to, like, decide where all of my decluttered makeup was gonna go this year, they announced that this was gonna come out. It was like, okay, I need to pull the Smoky Glam from the pile because I need to do a comparison for my review, which I did, and I found out that this new Smoky Glam palette doesn't have the cool tones in like the original. They edited it down. It's now 25 shades rather than like 40. It was insanely big, but you only get one row of cool tones in here. The rest is all pinky neutrals, which is beautiful, but whether I use this row or I use this row or I use this row, I get the exact same look. And that was also my issue with the pinky tones in the original palette. So I would have wanted fewer pinks in here and more of the cool tones that they took out. So if this had been 50% pinky tones and 50% cool tones, I would have liked it a lot more. So if this row, or this top row, because the top row is like my least favorite, if this could have been a row of cool tone neutrals as well, I would have rated this so much higher than I do now. But because of the overload on pink, I don't feel this is smoky or glam unless you want to wear pinks for a glam look, which isn't where my brain goes. If I think, ooh, I want to wear a glam look, I go for something like this, which is all cool tones. So, it's the whole thing. So that's why the Smoky Glam isn't up any higher. I like the quality. Bella Beauty Bar is one of my favorite brands when it comes to indie makeup and indie eyeshadow for sure. But the Smoky Glam is not my favorite pick. And I feel similarly about the Unoriginal Nudes. I was so hyped up for this. Everybody was tagging me in this when it was announced. Everybody was like, that's such a Micah palette. And again, here, color story wise, I'm like, yes, it's so beautiful. You do get cool tones in, you get some warm tones in, there are rosy tones, but overall it skews very neutral. But then they proceed to do shades like this that are essentially pressed glitters that have the glitter glue inside them. They cannot be blended. They can only be stuck down, and then there's no movement to it, which is good because it doesn't crease, but it's not the shimmer formula that I'm used to with Bella Beauty Bar. So that made me very sort of like questionable. Like it's not the neutral palette I had hoped it to be, because of those weird sort of pressed glitter texture things. They also, like, if you rub them between your fingers, they feel actually scratchy. I don't want that on my eyes. Like, those particles getting in your eye could hurt your eye if they already, like, hurt and scratch your fingertips. Your eye is an even more delicate area than that. So I don't know whether I definitely, like, I'm sure it's eye safe, else they probably wouldn't be able to sell this. But I didn't feel comfortable using this, and taking it off felt risky. I'm not a contact lens wearer, but especially if you have very sensitive eyes, or if you do wear contact lenses, I would be very careful if you own this palette. Just so you know. Beautiful color story, yes. The shades in here that do work for me work really well, but it's the two shades that make the palette look exciting and shimmering and fantastic that are the worst culprits. So it just really knocked it down for me for that reason. So we've just talked from, like, we went from 30 to 21, now we go from 20 to 11. Number 20 is going to be the Coco Sanka by Glam Shop. This is no longer available, that's why it's lower down. This is beautiful. I forgot to include it in my cool tone ranking. So that's why it's now here, but this is quite dark, and it does have neutrals in, so I'm like, In my brain though, it's like the more like glammed up version of the That's Taupe. I still really like mine. You get a duochrome in the middle, but they haven't done this in like 5 years, so you'll be hard pressed to find this. Glam Shop only makes limited edition eyeshadow palettes. I stalk the website from time to time to see if they're doing anything new that I might want to get. And that's how I sort of decide to buy things. This was recommended to me by you guys. This is the Cashmere by Glam Shop. Also no longer available. I do apologize. But one of the reasons why I like Glam Shop, I'm not sure if they are now much more expensive, but the 9 pans were always around like the 20 euro mark. And then these larger palettes were like 35-ish. So to me, really well worth it. I do live in Europe, so shipping and handling fees aren't hugely like expensive for me because they are a Polish indie brand, so it makes it a bit more manageable. And this is beautiful. It is sort of like cool to neutral leaning, has some really pretty sort of shimmers in here, and it has some sparkly things, but it also has plenty of mattes. You can really mix and match it, and then you do have these like peachy tones up here. Again, something I may have included in my cool tone video, and I no longer remember. I do apologize. And then number 18 is going to be the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural. So this was another re-release this year, and I actually like this better now. I kept the plastic on because the packaging feels like it's that rubberized sort of thing that everything sticks to, and it already makes me, like, it gives me a headache to just think of how dirty this pink would be if it's been sitting in my collection for a while. So I'm gonna keep the plastic on. So I do apologize if this palette creaks at some point. I tried the original of this. I decluttered it because I didn't like it because it was super warm tone on me. We're actually getting more cool tones in this, and we're getting more shades that really go together. When I played with it, I did a look with every single row like this. So something a little bit more smoky, something a little bit more like neutrally, something a little bit more rosy. And then especially this row here with like the chartreusey yellowy things and like the cooler shimmers. That has my heart. Could you mix and match this? Sure, because you do get some cooler toned mattes in here as well, so that will also go with it. So you can do a cool tone look with this, you can do a rosy look with this, you can do a warm tone look with this. If you pull in these yellows, you can add like a subtle pop of color. So it just does a lot, and I just like this one better than I did the original that they came out with. So that's why I rank this one higher than a Smoky Glam. But I do feel that this is very superfluous within the Glaminatrix range. Like, did we need a re-release of the Nearly Natural? I don't think so. There's already so much new makeup going around. So yeah, I tried this, of course, and I do appreciate it, else I wouldn't rank it this high. But I do think that if I had paid for this with my own money, I ended up receiving this in PR from MONOLITH. Same with the Smoky Glam, actually. So that made it a little bit easier for me to try them, because these are re-releases and I had tried both the original palettes. I always feel less inclined to test the new thing, because I'm like, did we need the re-release? And I always feel like we actually didn't. So that's why it's not ranked any higher, even though I did like the Nearly Natural better than the original palette. So I'm not really sure what to do next. I think what I'll just do is, because there's like 4 palettes by the same brand in this part of the ranking, I do apologize. So I'm first going to tackle the 3 palettes by the brands that are not Viseart, because it's Viseart that I have so many neutral palettes by, because they do a good neutral palette, we all know that. So this is not necessarily in any particular order, but the Fighter palette by Fantasy Cosmetica. This is beautiful. It's sort of like mixed metals inspired, I feel. But on me, it just pulls like a neutral palette. You get some cool tones, you get some warm tones. It all goes together really, really well, and it has some really beautiful shimmers in. We all know I love the Fantasy Cosmetica formula. They are another one of my favorite indie brands, and I do think they do some really, really good things. Then another Sydney Grace palette. This is the Cozy Cafe. I got this year. I was able to order it together with Esther, and she ended up with an extra one when she placed our order. So guess what's happening to that second one? It's in a giveaway. You can win this palette if you enter my giveaway, so make sure to link you to it in the description box down below. You can watch my announcement video so you know what to do and what other prizes you can win, because it's a whole package, not just this palette. I'm going to be including some other things as well. And in here, you get some cool tones, you get these pinky tones, and then you get these like sort of like neutral greens, I would call them. So this I feel is more neutral than the Heaven on Earth. It isn't as cool toned as I had expected. This is again one of those palettes that's promoted as a cool tone palette, but isn't actually that cool toned. It's one of those things again, especially these 2 pinks in here. They're very peachy on me. Is it still a beautiful palette? Yes. Is this a really beautiful palette for people with olive skin tones? Also yes. So I do rate this formula a lot, which is why I'm ranking it in the top 20, you can say. But there is a color story I like better by Sydney Grace that I think is a little bit better in terms of like a neutral palette. So that's why this isn't in the top 10. And then finally, by a different brand than Viseart, is the Cosmic Beauty Neutrals palette. This is another one where I'm like, is it warm toned? Is it neutrals? I don't know. It's called neutrals, so I'm sticking it in here. And this, I feel, looks warm toned because of the background. But in usage, it was a lot more like a muted version of the Muse, I would say, that I put on in the ranking a little bit earlier. So you get some purples in here, there are yellows, there are greens, there are like coppery things, there are some multi-chromes in here. But overall, in usage, I really felt that this looked very neutral on. And this came out together with the Cool Trolls, and I really had expected to love the Cool Trolls the most of the 2. And I didn't. I like this one better. Even though it does have some warmth in, you can very easily, depending on what shade you're going to mix and match, create that perfect neutral look. And I like that this gives you options. And again, it's sort of like neutral but colorful at the same time. And I do really appreciate that. And like I said, most of this top 20 is actually made up of 4 of my Viseart palettes. My ultimate favorites are going to be in the top 10 because Viseart and neutral palettes, they just kill it every single time. Esther contacted me around Black Friday saying, hey, the Viseart sale is live. Do you want anything? So I did place an order through her. I'm not even sure when that's gonna come, but it will show up at some point. It probably takes like 6 weeks to get here. So yeah, there is more Viseart on the way. But Viseart, I do feel like if I wasn't reviewing makeup for the channel, I definitely think that I wouldn't own all of these, because I do feel that now I own quite a few Viseart palettes, that they're starting to feel repetitive. But there were still a couple. They did like the Paris edit. They do now like a larger version of that. So that was on the wish list. I never got to try the Praline, which is their all brown palette that was always out of stock when I was placing some orders. And they have that new Nocturne collection, a warm tone and like a purpley toned one. That one had my heart, so I really wanted to test it out. But in here is the, what's it called? Rêverie étendue. I thought this was called the Paris Reverie. Whatever. Mine came broken when I ordered it, and they sent me one for free. But I was able to repress it, so over the summertime I already did a giveaway with that newer palette in. And this is stunning. It's very soft neutrals, I would say. You get some like rosy pinky tones in here, some lilacs, and then some like peachy brown things. It is really beautiful, but it was a lot more warm toned than I had expected. So it is good, but it's definitely more of like a neutral palette for people who are very fair and warm toned, I would say. Then I really wanted to try this. This is the Lilas Lumière Étendue. And we all know how I love the Lilas little quads. Those are some of my favorites. And I do feel that the shades we get in the Lilas quads are in here, but in usage as a palette, I didn't like this as much as I had expected. I do really rate the Viseart formula really highly, which is why these are listed so highly, like so high up in the ranking, because they make one of my favorite formulas. This is super easy, foolproof to use, and there are really beautiful shades in here, but I don't know, I just wanted more with this one. And I felt that way with Viseart palettes in the past. They always do a mix of warms, cools, rosy tones, and neutrals all in the 12 shades. And that works really well, but with this one, it kind of fell flat for me. So that's why it's not higher up. And I felt similarly about the Violette Vespertine when we got it. Of course, we have the Violette Étendue, which is with the brighter pinks and purples. I didn't put that in this ranking here because I'm pretty sure I already put it in a different ranking. And it's not like neutral enough. But this is like neutrals with pops of purple. And it's really pretty, but that's why I bought the Violette Nocturne through Esther now, because I feel like in my brain I had to look at all the swatches for these palettes on the website, and in my brain that new Violette Étendue looked like what I wanted this to be. And I feel that if we look at all the Violette palettes that Viseart makes, the Violette Étendue is like the brightest version of it. This one is the more muted slash deeper slash warm tone version of it. And that new Violette Nocturne, from what I could tell by the swatches and everything that I could find online, it looked like it falls in between Violette Étendue and the Violette Vespertine. So I like this, but it wasn't quite what I had expected when I bought it. So I actually like the Cashmere Charmeuse a lot better than I did that. This came out together with the Violette Vespertine. They came out at the same time. They always do these like mini capsule collections where they'll do something a little bit more warm toned and something a little bit more cool toned usually. But this, I liked a lot better in usage. It's sort of like the perfect fall muted neutral color story with a little bit of depth. The only thing I don't like, the only reason why this isn't top 10 for me is because it's very mid-tone heavy, and therefore everything starts to look a little bit samey once it goes onto my lids. But it does have like two really pretty like shifty shades in, so I did really enjoy that. Again, a little bit of cool, a little bit of warmth, a little bit of rosy. It has everything, and this is really beautiful in the fall time especially. And if you have a deeper skin tone than me, this is going to be your ultimate neutral palette for sure. So that rounds up the top 20, which means it's time for the top 10. So let me rank these, because these I do want to like put into a certain order. With these Viseart palettes, they all fit into like the same slot in my brain. so I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't decide which one I like better. But here we are going to have like numbers 10 to 1. So let's roll. And my number 10 goes to the Pat McGrath's Moonlit Seduction Mothership. 10? Yes, this is number 10. And this I actually purchased because I used to own one of the Divine Rose palettes, and this is what I wanted Divine Rose to be. This is a little bit more neutral leaning. It does have warmth, it does have cool tones, and it does have some rosy tones, but therefore it is a little bit more neutral leaning on me, especially. Till this day, the Subliminal, the Mothership one, will be my forever favorite Pat McGrath palette. This doesn't hold a candle to it. I only bought it a couple of years ago, and I haven't used it as much as any of my other Pat McGrath palettes because, again, compared to everything else I'm showing you in this video, this isn't like top of mind for me, but I love the Mothership formula. It's really beautiful. I haven't tried this since they've like Pat McGrath has like left the brand, apparently. I don't really know. There's 3 mattes in here, 3 regular shimmers, and then 4 of the special shades. And I really like the special shades that we get in Pat McGrath palettes, and I especially like this like taupey shimmer in here. That's what I reach for every single time, and I like that this one doesn't have a black, but a darker brown for the deepest shade that you get in the palette, and like a plummy thing as well. So that's why it works for me. Like as far as a neutral palette goes, this has some pretty like cool leaning shades in it that I think is really pretty. Moving in then to number 9, and this is the Jute palette from Glossier. This is one of their monochrome palettes, and this is so beautiful. You do only get 3 shades in here, and nothing here is super saturated or deep, but this is sort of giving me K-Beauty vibes. If you don't like K-Beauty, there aren't a lot of palettes by K-Beauty in this video today, because I don't have that many neutral things by them. The things I have are very warm, very rosy, or sort of more cool tone leaning, and I don't have anything that's like a true neutral. So this is sort of like a placeholder for that sort of vibe where it's this very effortless, whimsical sort of look, and I do feel you get that with this. So this is beautiful. I love the undertones of this. It is sort of like neutral with a little bit of coolness to it, and in here you get a matte, a satin, and a metallic shimmer. So this in the crease, this all over the lid, and then just top that metallic all over to give that whimsical vibe. This does, like, I would want a deeper matte in here, so if this would have been a quad, I would have liked it even more, but this is really beautiful quality, and I do really rate it. Number 8, the Rose Quartz by Huda Beauty. This is a neutral palette in my brain nowadays. It's no longer as cool toned as some of the cool tone palettes I have in my collection now. This is currently in my Shop My Stash. I'm going to be reaching for it very, very soon as we speak. So I'm looking forward to going into this again. The thing I do with this is a cool tone look, because I always want to go in with like these 5 shades and use this in the inner corner. And I kind of ignore the rest, but it has warmth, it has purples, it has pinks, it has neutrals, and then it has some cool tones in as well. So if I look at this objectively, I would rate this as a neutral palette. This has been one of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes in my collection for a very long time. So you knew this would be ranked pretty high, but it has been dropping down because, again, this isn't top of mind for me ever since I tried a different neutral palette that sort of beats all the other palettes in this ranking today. If you've been with me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is a palette that's still coming up. That was number 8. So we're on to number 7. And this is the Love's Journey by Sydney Grace. This is a beautiful palette. And it's not my ultimate neutral palette, which is why it's not top 5 for me. But it does, again, have a really beautiful layout. We get cool tones, we get neutrals, and we get warm tones all in one go. Which is why, in my brain, this works like a neutral palette. I've said it already a couple of times in this video, but I really love this formula, which is why it's ranked so high. I like this a lot more than I had expected. I almost passed up on this because I was like, oh, but I have color stories like this a million times over. I don't need this in my life. And then the kind Esther, who is now like pretty much the sponsor of my giveaway, you could say, ended up with an extra one. And she was like, I'm gonna give it to you. And I tried it and I was like, oh, but I love it. Because it is the Sydney Grace formula I love. I love Sydney Grace. Like in this video, I think my top 5 eyeshadow palette formula is in this video. It's Sydney Grace, it's Pat McGrath, it's Natasha Denona, and I think like Pat McGrath, and then yeah, Gloss Gots is in here as well. So those would be like my top 5 favorite, and like from like indie brands, I really like Bella Beauty Bar and Fantasy Cosmetica, and I love Glaminatrix, as you'll see in a sec. So like I can very easily list like my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palette formulas, and they are all in this video here today. So this is a very tough ranking for me to do, but Sydney Grace is definitely up there for me. They're one of the best, and they're especially, again, like Viseart, really good if you have like textured lids, more mature lids, if you have hooded eyes and you have like problems with creasing. These are still impactful. The mattes are beautiful. The shimmers are more satin metallic and so easy to use. Another Viseart palette then, and this is the newest eyeshadow palette from Viseart that I've tried. This is the Ceraneuse Étendue, and this one was again unexpected. I really thought I was gonna rate the Lilas a lot higher than I do this, but then I tried this and I was like, oh, this is much better. This is, it's everything. I think this is like, when I do my palette ranking, this is also going to be like top 10 favorites for the year. I really loved it. Again, it's the Viseart palette formula I know I love. And this color story for a neutral palette really gave me like a new boost, a new appreciation for neutrals. Because with neutrals, I think we think that it's always going to be like these dusty browns or whatever. But this shows you that a neutral palette can be neutral, but still have interest, because we get this like shifty shade here, and it does have like these cooler tone things in, and it's not like super duper mid-tone heavy like some of the things that I put in the top 20. Like this has a really good array of like going from deep to light, or light to deep, whichever way you want to go. I think I like it because it has taupe shimmers in. That's now that I look at it again, I'm like, yeah, there's some taupiness in there. That could be the reason why I like this one more than anything else, because taupe is one of my favorite colors to wear, especially for like a neutral. But these aren't like super cool tone taupes. You know what I mean? Sometimes taupes can be a little bit ashy and gray. These do have a little bit of warmth to them, so like that. Time for the top 5. I mentioned Glaminatrix as being one of my favorites, and they're Barely Basics, which was sent to me by Monolith. It was very kind of them. They sent it to me not in 2025, but in 2024, I believe. It was one of the first things they sent to me, as like a little test to see how things would go. This is so beautiful. And again, that's sort of like neutral palette, but with some color in. And that's really where my brain is going nowadays. Like, I really like this. I like the gradients in here. We get mid-tone shimmers, and we get these like toppery things that add sparkle and dimension, and I really rate this really highly. They have done this concept in other palettes as well. The Timeless Tones is a more cool tone version of this type of setup with some cool tone greens and blues in. But I think I like this one better than I do that one, because these shades just appeal to me a little bit more. And like in the Nearly Natural, you get these like yellowy green things in that are really, really pretty. I think I like these ones a little bit better than in the Nearly Natural. So again, I do feel that like Glaminatrix within the brand itself is becoming a little bit repetitive. And this is why I feel they didn't need the Nearly Natural, because they already had this. But I believe this was discontinued last year, and then the Nearly Natural was put back into stock. And of course they are different palettes, but it's not as if they're groundbreaking like different palettes at all. They're just not. So that's why I don't really get it sometimes with what decisions makeup brands make. But I think the Nearly Natural was such a popular release from them that people wanted it back, and that's why they did. I think that's why. Gloss Gots, new neutrals. This is one of the first palettes by them that I tried, and this one, sadly, I was stacking it after like showing it in a video, and it cracked everywhere, and mine has been so messy ever since, because there's magnets here, so the shadow got stuck to it, and I can't clean it whatever I want. And this shade looks like it's going to crack every single time I open the palette. But this, for a very long time, was even my favorite neutral palette. This bottom row, again, a little bit more cool green leaning. We have some warmth in the middle and true neutrals here. It has green shifts in both of these shades. So even though it perhaps looks really coppery, it really isn't. And that adds a little bit of interest to it. So I really rate this palette really highly. It's what introduced me to the brand. I've tried many other things by them. By now, brand-wise, this is not my favorite Gloss Gods palettes anymore. But I do feel that this palette really showed me that a neutral palette doesn't have to be boring. It can have like interesting shifts and like some more interest to it, that when you start putting these things together on your lids, it's going to look really beautiful. Number 3, again, a palette that was my top number 1 favorite neutral palette on the planet, and it's the Charmeuse, or the Charmeuse. It's because the other one is called Charmeuse. Number 3 is a palette that used to be in the top spot as well. This is the Cashmere from Viseart. We all know I love this. Again, something I like to reach for in the fall season. And this is just beautiful. Again, some rosy tones in here, some warm, some neutrals, some cool tones. It has a little bit of everything. And here again, I do like that it does go from light to dark, which is what I'm always looking for with palettes like this. It's just really versatile and everything still works together. So if you're looking for a good cool tone palette, or cool tone, if you're looking for a good neutral tone palette that has a little bit of everything and everything just mixes and matches so beautifully and you don't need to think about it, Viseart. Another formula that I really rate highly is the Makeup by Mario, but especially the Ethereal Eyes. I haven't tried his regular palettes, so I don't know about those, but these are something different. I really think these are really special. Yes, they are pricey. Including shipping, I had to get this from the official Makeup by Mario website when it came back, and that was ouch. It was 100 euros, including all of the shipping and handling fees. So I was really glad that when they did a second version that was more cool toned, that we could get it from European Sephora. That really made it a lot more cost effective. But this I had to import from the US. So pricey palette, but really beautiful. I love this shimmer especially. Like this is so beautiful. Oh, and it's especially the shimmers why I rate these palettes by Makeup by Mario so much. The mattes are stunning as well, but I don't rate palettes based on their matte formula because every brand under the sun, from like super cheap to super expensive, can do a good matte. It's the shimmers where we find the difference. And the shimmers in these Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palettes are just something else. You can layer them, you can build them up, they can go on to full intensity, but you can also just use a sheer layer on top of a matte and it will be this very subtle shimmery eye, and it will have this almost like glass effect on your lids. So pretty. But yeah, again here we have some warmth, we have some cool tones, we have some like neutrals, and I like this looks really red toned in the pen, I think because of the silver background that this has, but on the lids, so beautiful. It's almost like a rosy tone on me. So well done. And this works really well, like depending on undertones. I was honored to be able to do my neighbor's makeup for her wedding day, and I used this palette. She saw this in my makeup collection. You have the Makeup by Mario. I was like, shall we give it a try to see what we can use? And I did this with some other palettes of mine, and I actually ended up decluttering one of the palettes I used on her and gifted it to her afterwards because it was like, you need that thing in your life. It looks far better on you than it does on me. But yeah, Makeup by Mario, I just really love that palette, especially for its formula. But that one you can no longer get, and there is a color story on the market that is super similar, and I made the very bold claim in my eyeshadow palette collection video last August that this is the ultimate, the GOAT. If you need just one neutral palette in your life, it's this. It's the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I could declutter everything I just showed you in this video and keep just this one palette. If I could keep one palette even out of my entire makeup collection and I had to get rid of everything else, this is what I would keep. Because it's that good. It's got the formula, it's got the color story, it has everything. And a lot of people said that this was going to be cool toned when it came out. It's not. It's that perfect smack in the middle neutral palette. It has a little bit of warmth, but we can cover that up. And then Again, it does have a dark shade, but it goes super light for the inner corner highlight or the toppery things, whatever it is you want to do. We do get a mid-tone shimmer, which I also appreciate. And then we get texture and sparkles and things we can layer and mix and match. It just comes together. Yes, it has a couple of cool tones in. This is pretty light, so if you have a deep medium skin, you may not like this. It may be far too ashy. But with my complexion, if I want to go for something that's not overly cool nor overly warm and I want it to be the best formula of my life, it's this. I always thought that a perfect palette didn't exist until I tried this. I'm going to keep this in my makeup collection forever. If I, like I said, if I had to do like a project pan or like use a palette for like one palette for an entire year and not be bored with it, it would be this. This is just never boring. It's always right. I'm always going to get a look that works for me, that is easy to apply in the morning before I go to work. It just takes all of the brain space out of doing my makeup. And yes, I know it's expensive. I know this is an expensive palette, but you know, you can pop these out. You can curate it into other palettes as well. If you have a little singles palette, you could do that in case you're like traveling and you only want to take 2 shades with you. You could. If you have several of these Natasha Denona palettes, you could like rearrange them into like different color stories like I did for a while. It's got really nice sturdy packaging by itself as well. I mean, I dropped my retro a couple of years ago. The retro, not the retro glam, the like pinky one, the rosy tone one. I dropped that one. It was a bit of a shame. Yeah, this is just ultimate. We're just going to take a moment and sit there and just let this sink in. It's just such a beautiful palette. Yeah, this has everything I want in a neutral palette. It just does. It doesn't have the colorful things, but if I wanted to go for a colorful palette, I'd rather commit and go for like a true color full palette. Like if I go, like I'm sort of like an all or nothing type of person where it's either something like this or I go for like a blue, green, purple palette, you know? That's me. But yeah, thank you so very much for watching this video today. Let me know in a comment down below what your favorite neutral toned eyeshadow palette is. I would love to know. There are loads of them on the market because these are things that a lot of people that are regular everyday makeup consumers and not beauty enthusiasts or makeup artists will wear, and they're gonna buy these things, which is why we get so many of these things. There's a reason. It's called marketing. This is something you can market to loads of people, and a lot of people can use it and like it. Like especially something like the Natasha Denona. You need 0 skill level to make that work. You could apply those shadows with your fingers and you would be absolutely fine. You don't even need tools. Like you don't need to be able to blend to make that look good. So yeah, thanks so much for watching this video today. Thumbs it up if you liked it. I will be back with a new video very, very soon, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye.